Thursday, April 23rd, 2:34 p.m. What's up, everybody? A little bit on portfolio construction, then on to our talking points. So as you can see, we are looking at CF, again, our Iran-USA war conflict adjacent exposure. Just something that I see as that has flared up, that I think will have depreciation. Again, we've covered it a bunch, this whipsawing back of the headlines, but I just think there's an overall motivation, no matter how egregious, how aggressive, how public this, the posturing is from either side. It just, again, killing each other randomly just doesn't make any sense. And so a small position on some sort of resolution, again, at current time, and the headlines whiplash back and forth all over the place. And so small position, 20 shares. We did get CF, again, above the 125. And so we'll add, again, up to about 50 shares. If it probably we'll just add small 2 to 3 share lots. There is a 1 cent commission on execution here. Pretty much all of the trades we've been executing have been 0 commission. Just something to keep in mind. As we've referenced and talked about this, the lower the commission, most trades being 0 and these ones being 1 cent, you can add a lot more frequently with smaller share sizes, whereas previously, even if you watch the beginning videos of this series, to execute one side of a trade, to open or close a position, was $10. And so you're looking at $20 just in fees to start anything, where now it's just like, hey, pretty much effectively no commissions, very, very extremely small fees, 1 cent to short CF currently. And so that is what we're doing over here. We did have throughout the market, the movements I did was initiate this position, open it, and then I closed both of the income funds, the QQI and the SPYI. We had the ex-dividend date yesterday, which a brief comment on that. I do not like the verbiage. Again, it's one of these things. Ex-dividend date, as posted for QQI and SPYI, is April 22nd. And so it says, make sure you own the share at least usually one business day, which isn't specific. Is this, I have to own it April 22nd when it goes, midnight? Or is it 4 o'clock, 4 Eastern Standard Time for when the market closes? It's just not clearly articulated, and it should be. I mean, it's just one of these trivial things where it's like, how many people work at Schwab? How many people work in the financial industry? And then we have this extremely sloppy representation, word, ex-dividend. Just say, I have to own the share before this time, right? Saying even a date, right? Say before market close this date, or whatever the cutoff is. And so again, another incidence, evidence, bit of thing you encounter in the real world that just doesn't make sense. It's not clear. It should be. It's not difficult. It's not complicated. Why are we not clear with our language? I have no idea. So again, the ex-dividend date, I'm assuming the 22nd means by the close of the market on the 22nd. So point being is that I think I qualify for this month's dividend on the QQI and the SPYI. Regardless, we were up about $300 of the actual capital appreciation. And so with this more further turmoil, we open up the position on the CF for any sort of resolution. And if there's not resolution, which the current headlines seem to be that there's going to be, we had some parliament guy that seemed to be a moderate from Iran, and then a kind of genuine confusion as to what indicates what, but we did have some sort of volume spike. And so, classic good timing over here. Closed this at like 53.16, and this was right before this big volume spike thing. And so I had been looking to close these not for, I want to be in them, but it's just, we've gotten to appreciate a couple $100, which is more than the actual dividend, looking to about $250 from these two positions for monthly income at a place where the underlying had appreciated to $300 of profit. So I figured, hey, again, saving $300, whereas we just watched on this down draw, which I don't expect as big, where these QI, for example, gets down to 48. The bounce off of this was so strong. But point being is, it was just close it. Some short-term turmoil, maybe get a lower price action where, we looked at a depreciation of like $1,200, $1,500, $1,600. It's like, okay, maybe we can get a lower price average. We can secure some gains, so on and so forth. Certainly still want to be in these, certainly are going to be in these, but close these just to secure some profit. I believe I still qualify for the ex-dividend or for the dividend, but this ex-dividend, the accounting statement is not clear. It should be. It's not. More sloppiness and financial diction. Regardless, and this was before, like I said, I closed this before this Iranian parliament dude happened. And so there was no like volume spike. It was, we're just drifting down throughout the day, or pretty pronounced movement. But hey, wanted to lock in some profits. Tomorrow's Friday. Always expect more sell-offs potential on Friday. Further turmoil with the war. Just felt like something to close. Hey, maybe get a lower price. And then we still have, a whole nother month now to re-enter. So at any point, if we get a lower price action, this decision will make sense. And so that was the thought there. Close the income funds. Certainly want to be in them by the next dividend, but overall open to like trading these. And so that was the move this way. Again, we opened the CF. Our price average is 125. We'll add up into like the 140 if it were to get up into there. And so that was our portfolio construction for the positions that we have open. I did open Joby again, small, to get those private helicopter rides, but nothing really new anywhere else. And so did have another look at American Eagle. We did get up to the 20, again, 2 trading sessions ago. Not high enough conviction on here for really anything, but something we've covered, and that's been in our mind, and we have price action history kind of logged and saved from our recent memory. Regardless, wanted to comment a little bit on K-Parts. Look at us. Look at us over here at Avis Budget Group, CAR. And so this, again, like I said, one of the most unnatural trading progressions I've seen. Huge, massive sell-off yesterday. Another massive sell-off today. It's like, hey, guys, I would literally like laugh out loud if I heard somebody talking in earnest, like, hey, should we like buy the dip over here? We think this is like a good entry? Not because it might not be. I don't know. But this is just the most abnormal trading chart I've seen in a long time. And so some comparisons to GameStop and to AMC. But even with that, this doesn't seem like trading to me. I don't know. This just seems strange. And so this was not unexpected. I did look at because it says hard to borrow, so I didn't even really consider trading this. Even if I would have considered trading it, it would have been small, like again, 1 share, but I'm not going to give myself any credit and say I would have. But this hard to borrow, I didn't even consider. But it's always worth, again, just to throw up this order is not going through, but sell the ask, and you can see the fee, right? So for 1 to 2 shares, the fee is like 2 cents. And so the fee would have been trivial. Typically, just when I see the hard to borrow on my own execution of trades, I immediately see that. I just don't even look at it, but it's always worth to throw, again, the order. I did not place an order there. I just did the review section to see what the fee would be, and it would be trivial, whereas in some of the other ones where you get hard to borrow, and it's like 600%. So it's like a huge fee, where this one was like 2%. And so always worth looking into that. Realistically, I was not going to trade this, especially not coming off of the SanDisk, kind of the loss over there. But again, this would have been a 1 share type of position. Did not trade it, and then we see huge sell-offs. This type of movement, again, if SanDisk's appreciation and this would have happened at the same time, this would have been a better short, because again, when you see this abnormal stuff, like SanDisk is appreciating substantially, but it's got real fundamentals. There is some story for, hey, this super cycle memory sticks with us. And so to me, that's SanDisk is actually trading. This is not, it's trading, but it's not. You watch enough stock movements, this is some, so I don't know what this is, but this is something. And so this would have been the more abnormal. Again, you take a position size that is reasonably manageable, and then you plan for 2 or 3 catastrophes in the wrong direction, and then you manage from there. But this, again, $600+ a share is obviously, huge profit potential. And so wanted to comment a little more over here. This like K parts. This is not a little 30% dip. This is just what the fuck is going on over here. And so wanted to comment on that. We had CapEx. So this is a phrase, buzzword. Back in my day, gather around, kids, gather around. When we had capital to invest, and we bought a store, and we invested in infrastructure, we called that brick and mortar. Back in my day, what the kids be calling CapEx, we called brick and mortar. And so, just another term for buying physical assets. There was some sort of, I Googled it, some sort of additional to amortize over a longer period of time. You buy something, and then you have the write-off as it depreciates over its lifetime. So some sort of accounting thing, but the term literally means capital expenditure. You're spending money on, and then some sort of differentiation, specifically physical apparatus, physical structures, buildings, real estate, so on and so forth. And so, but I don't see how that's different than brick and mortar. And the kids these days coming up with all their new slingo and lingo and bingo cards and whatever else you say. So wanted to point that out. I did a couple more like kind of political ones, but on the Iranian war. We had Sarah Huckabee from Arkansas. She was on CNBC and talking about how the Iranians killed Americans. And again, it's just like, as an American citizen sitting right here without constitutional rights that's faced grave bodily harm, I absolutely cannot fucking stand listening to politicians say we care about the United States Constitution. You don't. You do not care about United States citizens. You don't. And then how many citizens have you guys killed by getting involved in wars and stuff? And again, I come from a world where I actually know what's kind of going on in the intelligence world, and all of this stuff you see in public is total fucking bullshit. And so I don't think, again, I'm still wondering, trying to figure out, I'm crunching numbers over here in my physics brain. I'm struggling in physics class. I'm really struggling in physics and fundamental science, and I'm still trying to figure out how Building 7 fell down with no air resistance. That's really peculiar. So if we want to sit on here and just, again, blurt out bullshit narrative that is false at face value, Sarah Huckabee, you have won yourself criminal charges specifically. We're going to prioritize all of the people that I call out because I'm so tired of watching fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy and then being spewed out into the world like it's true. And so that's disgusting. Again, the United States does not respect its own constitution. You guys are just hypocrites at face value, egregious, profoundly, treasonous, slanderous, saboteurs immediately. So I continue to document that every single time. But then again, as a commander-in-chief or as somebody who's got to put yourself on the line, okay, now we're going to refuel a plane in Iraq, and that gets blown up. And then 3 F-15s or whatever get shot out of the sky. And then you have 25 dead and hundreds injured. What about those ones? And so this blanket statement, bad thing happened, now we're going to go do this other thing that doesn't make any sense, and then a bunch of stupid people are going to rally behind us. That's what you're watching, and that's what you're appealing to, our great, is that a Governor Huckabee? Definitely heard her before. But Arkansas, again, we're just going to echo off our random red team talking points with no respect to the Constitution, which immediately makes us a hypocrite to the point where it doesn't even matter what comes out of our mouth. But shout out to Sarah. Keep on keeping on, girl. Slay queen. I did want to point out this is a talking point or one of Trump's addresses from previous. And you can see how much of just like a game this is to him. Because he specifically used some sort of verbiage to the effect of, if I order a hit or if I order an airstrike, if I order this person to get taken out, they get taken out the same day. Which I wanted to emphasize that is a cultural mapping from Narcos. From Pablo Escobar's show, where it's like there's some verbiage in there specifically that says, if I wanted to take somebody out, they get taken out the same day. It's in the show or it's in one of the documentaries I've seen, but it's Trump's usage of that concept was directly taken from that type of environment. And when Trump's coming up in the 80s or was around in the 80s, and now you have all of these mob guys, and you see this type of verbiage, and then he becomes the president and he's using, again, Narcos kind of like verbiage, which I do think it was a real quote from Escobar. But it's just like Donald Trump is now, again, literally like personifying Pablo Escobar. Literally. Like the verbiage, that's where that comes from. as the president of the United States. Obviously not good to see. But wanted to point that out, wanted to emphasize that. And then the final talking point is something that Tim Seymour said yesterday. Tim Seymour is about 60 years old, it looks like. I Googled him. He's probably spent more money on hair product than I've ever spent on food in my entire life. So Tim Seymour says something to the effect, we have this... Again, I have what the... Getting back to Tim Seymour here in a second, what is the effect of an executive order? Is it just like, hey guys, I really want you to prioritize getting some sort of law or statute passed? Because we had this executive order, hey, we're going to reclassify cannabis, which is, again, scientifically illiterate to the point of fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. All of analysis is proving on the internet. Not prescribing cannabis oil is the single most detrimental thing that is proven scientifically valid yesterday on the internet today. And so that's immediate criminal charges for the death and destruction caused by not respecting the Constitution, subsequently not publishing scientific results. And so Tim Seymour's, but before we get to that, we have this executive order in general, like it doesn't like override statute. It's just like, hey, this is a priority, get something done. In general, should the executive, the president, or should anybody be able to at some point say, hey, this is so poignant or so relevant, change stuff immediately? And the answer is yes, and that point is scientific proof, which once again, we've now covered. You guys have literally no idea what mathematics is. You have literally no idea what analysis is. You guys are career-chasing animals that are privileged and entitled and have no idea how to make decisions. And so that collective insecurity becomes statute, and it just kills people. So that's bad. We need to stop killing people because we're scientifically illiterate and directly violating our own laws. Bad thing. Bad Governor DeWine. Bad Donald. Bad guys. And so there's proof. Proof is proof is proof is proof. If something is proven, it should be in something, there's a law that doesn't make sense, it needs to immediately change. Because 1 + 1 never equals 3. It just doesn't. And so, in general, there should be, I don't know if it's an executive order, but just some sort of process where, hey, something is proven right or something is proven wrong, and it just, you have no understanding of the importance of science. And I am talking to the deans at Harvard, Avi Loeb, to whoever's at Ohio State. Take anybody on this planet that says they're a scientist, let them interact with me publicly, and we will see who is the scientist in hilarious fashion. But once something is proven, if you have statute or if you have policy that is contradictory to that, if you drop a ball, it's going to fall down. It doesn't matter if a bunch of people, if 100 people say it's not going to happen, it's still going to happen. You can't break the law, in parentheses, of physics. You can't. And so getting to, we have this executive order around cannabis. We have another headline yesterday. Again, it's like, hey, we're going to now do it or something. I don't know the legal process of executive order to something actually changes. I thought it was already kind of like done or going or something. And so as somebody active in this type of commentary, business, economics, policy, politics, and then I don't even get, like, you guys never articulate anything. I just don't get what anybody's doing besides not their job. And so, it doesn't have to come from the executive. There's such a circle jerk in the United States around the edifice of the government. Not the individual president per se, but just the idea that there is a president. We have our checks and balances, our separations of powers, and you have a bunch of fucking idiots having no idea what they're doing. And so, this doesn't make any sense. Regardless, Tim Seymour's up there and he says something to the effect of, I'm not sure, in relation to cannabis, that it will ever be legalized in my lifetime. Which, Tim, I hope you can reflect, considering, again, you have spent more money on hair product than you've ever spent on books or reading or educating yourself. Because once you made a little bit of money in finance, buddy, you just stopped learning, didn't you? Never met you a day in my life, and I'll put every penny I've ever made, which might be a little more than you can see on the screen, that you're a lying sack of shit. And so, because once the alpha males get where they're going in life, they put out their chest and say, huh, look at my estate. Look what I have. And one day, young fledgling, you can follow me and have what I have. Suck a dick. Excuse me. And so, Tim, just to hear that sentiment, The validity, the efficacy, the safety, the efficiency of cannabis is proven yesterday. And so the fact that you can sit up there and say, oh, yeah, dude, I'm going to make a nice career in finance, have no social responsibility, and say, I'm not even sure cannabis will be legalized in my lifetime, is something akin directly saying, fuck the United States Constitution, fuck the people that actually know what they're doing, which is me, which is Brad. Again, anyone out there that thinks they're a scientist, a doctor, a lawyer, anything, all of my money has been where my mouth is. Here is the law, do your job. And I can wait, and I can go anywhere. Well, yeah, that's right, because you guys are all fucking criminals. And so I want you to imagine this, Tim Seymour. Imagine you have derived all of analysis multiple times, and you've put up a whole lecture series to put it on the internet. And then you're sitting there watching your family deteriorate from illness that's addressable and treatable, but they don't respect your scientific reputation. And then what's the point of life? I'm born into a world where everyone says, go work hard, study, learn, and you go study and learn, and the herd mentality of fucking idiots is such that you can't take care of the health of yourself or your family. What is the point of anything? Come on, Timothy. Come on, bro. You put all that gel in your hair. You fly on your private jet. You watch stocks all day. You make the money. If you cannot take the care of the health of your family, what the fuck matters in this life? Tim, just have a nice... Oh, it's almost Friday. Have a nice weekend. And maybe another vacation. Ha, 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 ha. Are you going to read? Are you going to educate yourself? Which, again, I don't think reading, like blindly reading a huge quantity of books is relevant. Get a functional understanding of how things work. Go to every section of ontology, every subject, math, physics, history, economics, all of the ones you've never learned, and just get a base understanding of where the research is at, what is going on, and then you'll come to the same conclusions that are sitting on the internet right now. But we just have idiots everywhere. So that was just it's just like a bone-chilling statement, because I am the most accomplished scientist ever in a way where it's to not be in a position to have my credentials restricted from me. This isn't about fucking the Riemann hypothesis. This is like functional understanding of biological health immediately, and it's wrong. And you guys just have to stop lying. Here is the law, do your job. Nothing. Just nothing. And so, such a weird sentiment just coming from extreme privilege and extreme illiteracy and extreme incompetency from Tim Seymour. And so those were my talking points on the markets today. I did feel like just an absolute goober because, like I said, I closed these before this big spike back up. Like I was already looking to close the income ones, and then you get this big spike of volume out of nowhere. Or I don't say out of nowhere, but I watch the market pretty much all day, and it's just like you make a decision, and then just like, oh, boop, the other way. Because again, if I waited like literally 3 minutes. Which, again, the volume came after I closed this. I didn't close it into 15... I didn't close it into this candle. I closed it into, like, this candle. And so it's just like, boop. And then you get this big volume spike, and you kind of pop back up. Regardless what I said for the income funds, I think I'll get a better entry price. The overall dividend distribution, I should still get for the month of April. And then on top of that, securing the capital appreciation, giving me a better entry. Hopefully, I still see some more turmoil, but expecting some better re-entry over the next month. And so that was the portfolio construction considerations. Those were the talking points. And like I said, back in my day, CapEx was just called brick and mortar. Anyway, finishing up at 2:58 p.m., and we will check in later. Friday, April 24th, 12:11 p.m. What's up, everybody? Heading into the weekend. Again, another long weekend for all those hardworking Americans out there. Again, still don't have constitutional rights, but a lot of talking points, some portfolio construction. We're up a little bit over here on CF. Again, we expect to see depreciation, which is profitable for us on any sort of resolution or some new headline cycle, or just overall decreased volume as attention on this fades. And so, small position over here, up a little bit. I'm not going to move this. Did wanted to comment on my great closure yesterday. It was not a great closure. But again, had been looking to, enter these income funds, back in like October. The overall price points weren't great. We had some drawdown. We're able to go profitable overall on the capital, the principal. Made a couple $100, but we closed out at 53.16 here, and then just immediately rocketed back up. And I sit here all day on these things, and I was closing or had my orders or thinking to close. Just again, this is like a position we've had for 8 months. It's an income fund. It's not something that I'm like trading per se, but just up a couple $100. The overall market, as we've covered, again, a retracement. Again, first thing I wanted to say is this overall war sentiment, right? Anytime there's excitement or provocation or agitation, even if it's a bad thing, there's always heightened activity. And so I kind of see this strength of this rebound on the overall indices as like still kind of like remnant sentiment, or I don't even say remnant, but just like a facet or consequential from just this war sentiment in general. Think people are talking, things are moving, what's going on, as opposed to just, hey, is Nvidia worth 4.3 trillion today or 4.4 trillion? And so I think the overall heightened emotional output, not like, oh, I care about a war, but just like heightened activity in general is why we saw a stronger rebound. I have no way to prove that, but that's just my take on feeling of how this stuff is trading. And so overall management here, I think I'm going to try to day trade, or not day trade, but like kind of swing trade or whatever verbiage you want to put on it. But again, we'd been collecting dividends, we did fully qualify. I was right about that. Had those deposited today. Those were like, I think $280 from SPYI and QQI. But just, we had this drawdown. I don't expect the same type of drawdown to this 4,700 level. Or 48, excuse me. But I just saw, again, my price average here on the QQI was like 52.70, and the SPYI was like 51.70. And so I just figured, hey, in the next month, is there going to be a down draw in which I get a lower price? I think so. Because without the intention to close these, the underlying appreciation doesn't matter. And so if it goes up like right where it's sitting today, right, the only reason I even mentioned I closed it yesterday, because I was intending to close them after this ex-dividend to try to reset my entry price. Just a little bit, again, not a big move by any means, but just, hey, again, secure another $300 to $500, lower my entry price. And this whole time we've been collecting dividends. And so I think these are advantageous. Again, people say, you miss out on the growth of the market. But if you trade these, I feel like, in a meaningful way, I feel like we could recoup this. Because this is something that I'd be confident going bigger on, because it's a long position where you get income if it kind of goes in the wrong direction. It's an index, so it's not one single stock. And so I think trading, like kind of swing trading these income funds, is something I'm going to try to do. So I have no position on them currently. As we've covered, if you're watching this clip, there'll be a one before this. Certainly want to re-enter. Again, I like these. These have a good stability overall in terms of the way I followed them, the way that I want them to perform for me. And so these continue to be of interest to me, just looking for a drawdown day where, again, you can go a little heavier, even maybe use some of your day trading buying power for like an actual day trade. And then if the trade isn't perfect for you, just hold on to the position, close any leverage you would have, and just have it as an income fund. And so you don't get nearly as much volatility in comparison to a single stock, but again, we're looking for conviction. If we're sure something's going to go up or down for whatever reason, we can just scale to a bigger size. And in a long position where it's an income fund, I have a lot more confidence, because if it goes in the wrong direction, it's not going to be as severe, and you're still going to have income to average down on, even if you don't have money elsewhere, right? Just the income, the drip is what they call it, dividend reinvestment, something. But just putting the money you get back from this single security, even if you don't have other free cash in your portfolio, you can still drip your income to lower your price average. And so definitely going to be looking to trade these. And again, from my overall perspective of managing this, if I can get to a lower price or even the same entry price, I'd say lower. If I can lower my entry price before the next dividend, I've missed literally nothing. Because if I just let it sit here, the fluctuation, right, this is an extra, frankly, because I had 230 shares, and so it would have been another, one something, and same with the SPYI. So again, on the actual trading perspective of the capital appreciation, left about 200 to 300 on the table. That's just, I consider that more of a fluke because that was kind of my perspective. I see it kind of dip down yesterday. I literally close it down into here, and then we get this big volume spike, and it just launches back up, and you're like, oh, awesome. Or I guess, yeah, it was right here. You can't really see it on this one, but this big blue volume thing in the black background. And so it was just like, oh, awesome, sweet. Yeah, I think it was more pronounced on the SPYI and the S and PY concurrently. Yeah, you can see this big old blue thing. Or it just launches like just this volume spike and just like, oh, sweet. Great timing, Brad. But regardless, a couple $100, I think it was like 300 total profit, left another about 300 on there of the capital appreciation. Been collecting about, let's say right around $200 average a month since holding them for the past 6 months. So, maybe about $1,200. So, hey, certainly definitely net positive. And then overall going into the future, feeling pretty confident about taking these as like swing trades. And so that's my thoughts over here. SanDisk did break 1,000 proper today. And so this is looking super strong. Not something I'm going to play to the long side, but I definitely think this will appreciate into earnings. No real new comments over here. Looking to enter that if things go in a way that makes sense to enter short. And I would say specifically pre-market after earnings. And so to give us an example, I did enter Intel, sector kind of similar, definitely under AI, definitely under technology. Is it exactly the same as the memory trade? No. But another company that's been around historically, it's up a ton. It was down a ton for a while for a lot of people. But just for our overall, hey, here's a kind of similar situation. Earnings reports strong, exactly what we expect for SanDisk. And so looking at this price action, I see this as pretty consistent for anything that beats earnings after hours until the open of the next morning, where you have this initial spike. This is the big spike we were talking about for American Eagle, but things that sell off immediately. And so that was a super sector-specific trade, but this aftermarket thing that we talk about, like, hey, we're going to try to play this somehow. The most predictable way, and again, I've referenced this. This is like one of the bread and butter types of trades I look for. Is this, but emphasizing this is reported after hours, like 4:05, right after the market closes. You get this initial spike, and then it goes into actual like trading. And then typically you get this appreciation, the maximum typically. And again, this is like, if I had to put a number, I would say this happens 69% of the time. Or 6 to 7, 69% of the time, somewhere in that range. But it's substantially above 50%. Whereas you'll have pre-market appreciation, currently sitting at this 87.23, typically between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. So you might have to wake up a little earlier. But typically, if you're new to trading, I wouldn't recommend doing anything pre or post market. I pretty much never do anything post market besides small entries, because typically if it's like this, it always makes sense to wait till the morning. But what we documented that American Eagle, immediate appreciation to immediate sell-off, which is super, I wouldn't really recommend that for a lot of people, but it made a lot of sense for following something as specifically as I was. But entering pre-market, like again, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. the day of, or the day after the earnings report, seems to be the peak of the price appreciation in response to the earnings report. And so I did not short, I was going to, but again, they said this is such a small position. I'm not trading to try to make money, but I was highly confident that was going to go down. So I did short this after the market opened. If I was going to trade this to make money, I would have shorted half of my position pre-market, and then frankly would have waited because you're not sure how high this is going to blow out the minute the market, or the 3 minutes the market opens, or go down. And so, but definitely thinking if you're comfortable with trading, taking a pre-market short is the most advantageous time and the most predictable, highest price. And so ended up shorting this at 83.34 after this initial pop. Where was it back down to? So I think it was one of these candles. It was definitely several minutes. It was like 15 minutes after. So I want to say it was into this candle, but at the time it had bounced up, gone down, bounced up from one of these candles to the View app. And so super small position, 5 shares, currently up $2 a share, which is decent. And then then technically now we have a huge gap. And so gap filling always seems to be a thing. We've referenced that, talked about that. And so pretty high conviction on here, but just not in, again, I don't have constitutional rights. I'm not risking money, but wanted to take the trade to follow it and to give us a kind of an indication. We've been talking SanDisk, but it's really the same type of playing out. And so giving us some gauge, a test on the sector is because there's a chance in our prospectus, at least in my mind, that it beats earnings. It maybe sells off or retraces, but what it could do exactly what it did last earnings report. Remember, SanDisk was at like 538, if my memory recalls correctly. Gaps up to 725, sells off that whole day, but then it's just a gap fill. It sells down, trades normally, and then is right back up. And I remember this day because I followed it, and it was just like a normal trading session. And then we just go into this consolidation period, and then we go to another move up. And so could that happen again? The overall market cap still makes me say, for SanDisk, because you could double from here, and it's still at like, I think, $265 billion, which again, you're looking at NVIDIA, just Intel. I think this is right around 830 or 385 billion, I believe, or something to that effect. At least that's what it was registered on StockTwits on the open. And so the overall market cap, which to me is the same thing as the price to earnings type of conversation, I mean, you could still see more traders piling in. So again, we will be treading very lightly with SanDisk, but I do think it will be a high conviction. But using the sector as a gauge, where it's like, okay, this is the same type of environment, I think. And again, specifically to Intel, where it's, again, you're looking at this, I think this is all-time highs. Or, yeah, it is. And so, but again, this is what I'm saying earlier. This is, from 2018, right? You can get caught for years. You can get caught for years down here. And so it's just like, where this price to earnings, total market capitalization, where should something be trading? Where is something in a trade? Is just, I have no conviction on it pretty much ever. I just look for these extreme earnings beat on extremely high things. Okay, maybe it'll go down for a little bit. Seems like a decent idea, but that's the thought. And then we take a position in the sector and see, hey, how is this behaving? And so up a whopping $10, but a good gauge to see if this is going to sell off. Again, we're at 12:24 p.m. Friday. So, I mean, again, I'm always short bias. I'm more short bias on Friday. But in this trading sector series, we've covered plenty of times when Friday it's like, okay, after 1:30, the lunch hour, nope, we're just going to go up again. So no real conviction, but I have a hard stop loss. We're actually going to move this down now. Because we are out of the hard stop loss I had up here was, let's just move it down to my entry. But so I want to be a little higher than that. So again, always trading the move. We'll see how this is like right at the very top. It's like, okay, let's risk $5 whole and move it up a little bit. Yeah, I'll just cancel this. Oh, you can't see me because I'm on top. Delete. Cancel that, and then we'll just risk $5. So it's 34. So right here is good enough. But again, just always having our stop in a place where it's meaningful to the trade. Even if it's $10, that's our profit right now, risking $5 total. We still don't want to put our stop loss on a place where it's just fluttering of the normal action in a channel would just knock it out. There's no point to do that. And so if it were to hit my stop loss now, it would be out of that channel, making a move upward. Even if it were to flutter up there, to me, it would be significant enough to be, hey, we're going to cut it there. And so this is kind of our approach to SanDisk. But if this does not sell off hard, I mean, I'm not going to have some big, I don't have a grudge against SanDisk. The overall market capitalization is at a level where further continuation up could happen. A stock split could happen, which again, as we've covered, pretty inconsequential overall. Because again, you're looking for the overall percentage move, right? If Intel goes from $81 to $40, or if SanDisk goes from $1,000 to $500, it's the same return. So you're just looking for overall percentage move and conviction of that movement. And so that's my thoughts with Intel for the whole earnings reactions. That was one of our talking points. And so moving on, we have a soldier was arrested for the Maduro payout. Again, just somebody with insider knowledge, a soldier. And just this was in the morning session with Joe Kernan. Why does he still have a job? Nobody knows. But with Andrew Ross Sorkin and Becky Quick. And so didn't watch the whole conversation, so not going to rip into Joe Kernan too much. Just kidding. We're absolutely going to rip into Joe Kernan. and so this Joe, this name is literally Joe. That's like the generic term I use for anybody. But his name's actually Joe, so that works out. But he literally says something to the effect of like, well, he got paid out because they were so good and they got it done. Again, this generic fucking Republic sentiment coming of, oh, our great military, again, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution is directly violated. If you do not respect the Constitution, you do not respect this country. And then you have the Republican Party, and I'm not a Democrat. I'm more fiscally responsible than you. I'm more fiscally conservative than you. I'm more understanding of science than everybody. There are certain things when you prove things, if you drop a ball, it's going to fall down. Even if 100% people say it's not, it's going to. And so I don't really have like opinions on anything. I just don't like this behavior of, I'm going to look at that guy. Haha, look how insecure that guy is. Look at that guy's hypocrisy when you're just pouring out hypocrisy yourself. And so as we've emphasized, if you do not respect the Constitution, which clearly nobody does, you have no business in saying, oh, just shut the fuck up. You have no respect for anything. You're a privileged little insulated nothing. And that's Joe Kernan. And so he's like, oh, dude, look at our great soldiers, bro. He just went in there, committed an act of war, under false pretenses and illegal stuff. But like, yeah, man, badass. We just committed a war crime, stole another country's president, bro. Sick. But we're the badasses. Again, it's just like the most generic nothingness to Joe Kernan as always. And so to the overall talking point, Sorkin points out that you can do insider trading and still lose money, which is absolutely hilarious. Trying to trade on insider information and then still fucking it up is objectively hilarious. And so, yeah, you should add insult to injury. They should lose their money and still get sent to jail. And so, any insider trading, this is an interesting one because I feel like a lot of Americans would just be so illiterate that they'll be like, oh, well, it's an act of war in that country over there, so it doesn't really count, dude. For overall these prediction markets, this is what I was talking about earlier, is that there's no way to sequester or to like what becomes insider trading is like all information now. And so it's just like, again, I've never even been on Kalshi. I've never been on Polymarket. Is it like, hey, I'm Brad, I think this is going to happen. I can put up a prospectus and you can take this trade or this bet if you want. I'm assuming that's what happens. You put up a contract of some effect. Might do some good to actually look at the websites, but how you regulate or not regulate or what counts for insider trading, what doesn't count for insider trading is a genuine just, And so a lot of regulation and kind of conversation around that. I'm in the same boat you guys are. It's just like, you're not going to be able to, the amount of insider trading potential now is humongous. I'm not even like that against it. Again, if vetting your own trades, I don't know. We'll just see how that progresses. But to this specific incident, I would imagine again, like guys like Joe Kernan's like, it's $400,000, not that much money came out of the market, and it was from an action in that country over there. Like a lot of Carloses and Juans doesn't count, dude. But to me, my reaction to this instance is, again, we're sitting here talking about the country where our Attorney General, Todd Blanche, just said, and I quote, "We're not going to prosecute predators." So our Department of Justice is prioritizing $400,000 in any environment whatsoever. Fraud is fraud, prosecuted, absolutely. But we're prioritizing as in, hey, I'm wake up today, I have a bunch of crime, here's the one we're going to prosecute. Our Attorney General is saying you could kids. Wow. That's inspiring stuff. As a man that wants to have a family in this country, I am glad to see our Attorney General saying we are not going to prosecute predators. To me, that would just be immediate imprisonment, and you would lose his job immediately. Blanche is getting, oh, Trump. Excuse me. Sorry, something got stuck in my throat. But that's just atrociously disgusting. How can you say we're not going to prioritize pedophilia? That seems like a pretty important, again, crime that causes real detriment with real victims. $400,000 come out of the market. I don't like any fraud. I don't like any false advertising. I don't like any unfairness in that sense. Meaning, people are going to be born with privilege. People are going to be born in different environments. Life's not fair, but like extreme unfairness is different than just life's not fair. And so fraud is extreme unfairness. Crime is extreme unfairness. But we have an Attorney General saying we're not going to prosecute child predators. where, again, profound human loss of life, loss of quality of life, where 400K is like, who gives a shit? I have 600K right here. I can't move out of my parents' house. I can't buy food comfortably because I don't have constitutional rights. And our attorney general's publicly saying we will not prioritize abuse of children. I was tortured at school, attorney general. What about me, brother? Now all of your kids go to school and they steal what? My personal realizations. Literally, Brad, this guy right here, went out into the world, solved all of this shit without constitutional rights. Destroyed my reputation, my property, everything, and now you can't literally learn something that I didn't personally realize. That's bold. I mean, again, we're just in a whole historical, like Andrew Ross Sorkin said, we're all learning more about language. We're in an anomaly. And in eight short years, you can reiterate all of knowledge. You didn't do it, Todd Blanche. I did. And, well, we're not going to prosecute predators. Well, we're going to prosecute all criminals. That's what we're going to do when, again, the law makes sense. But that's what's going on with this Maduro payout, the overall regulation around prediction markets. Big question. You're certainly not going to be able to sequester the information. So the availability of insider trading, quote unquote, is going to be substantial. What do we do about that? I've got no real good direction. We had this New York City mayor, who again is right around my age, maybe a couple years younger, or right around, like, basically my age. But Mamdani, and I had Blake Griffith, like I originally had the basketball player written down, or Blake Griffin, but it's Ken Griffin, big business executive out of Citadel. And so this was an interesting one, because this is, if you've seen the video, Mamdani's outside of Ken Griffin's penthouse. It's like $238 million. The presentation, it's like 1 minute and 9 seconds. Hey, we're going to tax the rich. Here's this guy's residence. It's worth $238 million, and it's not even his pride. He doesn't even live here. And so, frankly, if you're paying property taxes, that's a big thing for who gives a shit. But then there was a kind of a question of unused real estate, or it's not overall productive for our community. Which, from the Mamdani perspective, I totally get that. From the private ownership, I totally get, if I'm paying property taxes, go fuck yourself. And so I would almost certainly fall to the private ownership, go fuck yourself, because I don't see what one penthouse, not living there, or what detriment does it do to the city. So it's 85% would just say, I pay property tax, go fuck yourself. 15%, if there was a real, this space not being used by someone who's really rich and doesn't live here, that could cause me, from a regulator, personal, wanting to be a member of the community. But I just don't see that this amount of square footage is doing anything. Granted, it's New York. I've never really lived in a big city like that. That's just the sentiment that is presented by this talking point, this event. And so that's kind of my thought on the actual, the taxes or extreme wealth. Again, the overall sentiment of let's just tax rich people to tax rich people's illiteracy. What people have articulated as a lot of money is not a lot of money. What people always articulate is that person has something I don't have. Jealousy and gluttony are the same level of bullshit. And so, again, two sides of the same coin, maybe even inverses, who knows? But regardless, the other kind of consideration to this event is that taking the video outside of a private residence. What information should be public, right? Property taxes. You can look up anybody based on their property tax, and then I want to go out on the street and say, hey, this guy's a horrible person, fuck him. Which is interesting for my situation, because it's I kind of want to do that. But again, it's whose consent. The whole purpose of law is to facilitate consent. And so you have a mayor going to a private residence of somebody who's not really committing a crime, or not committing a crime at all. And so it's am I even for property records being public? It's you have to be able to execute normal business. If you want to file a lawsuit, you have to be able to serve papers. But at the same time, if you have a serial killer and he's just going through the phone book looking for random people and Johnny Smith's address is right there, that would be a reason I would not want things public. I consider the vast, vast majority of all of the populace not even close to that type of behavior, meaning you could have way more public information It's not going to cause any problem. But if you have one instance where a public address causes in a murder, you're going to not want that profoundly. And so what amount of information should be public? To this, back to our specific instance, going outside a private residence and saying, this person lives here. Again, this is a huge facility. I don't think this is going to cause a security problem. Again, this is another involved thing where it's like, then taking my specific situation, where it's like I am the victim of crime where the law enforcement won't do anything. And so when I call out people's personal residences of people that I want to prosecute and literally criminally throw in jail, no, I don't think I would. I don't even know where they live. I wouldn't trying to figure out where somebody lived would not be it's never a thought in my brain. And so, but you have to be able to find how to contact them to sue them. And so through my direct personal interactions of people that I want to throw in jail, throw severe crimes at, you can hear me, again, everything I do in my life is recorded. And so you'll hear me literally say, I just need some sort of legally identifying information. And that's on a direct personal, you fuck me over, my whole rights are violated, I can't do anything about it, but I need some way to, if I want to file something in court, not threaten you, not do some random shit, but contact you with hey, I'm suing you, hey, I'm petitioning for criminal charges. I have to be able to find you somehow. So I ask people for legally identifying information. As the exact verbiage I use, and you can see that it's documented throughout my personal interactions. Again, at a level of extreme duress and extreme crime, it's just I need some way to contact you. So you need that, but besides that, I'm not really for a bunch of information being public. But then in reality, again, like we've been talking about, public and private at a direct sentiment level is not, private doesn't really exist. But for that, again, what I call the random phone book serial killer, right? A million people pick up a phone book with address in there. They're going to call their friend or look up somebody, when that was a thing. But the one person that wants to go do some random crime and they can find addresses, that's a bad thing. And so it's that's the same type of consideration or environment that I think of for all public information, anything that could be used for doxing, saying, hey, this person lives here, this person works here, go fuck with them. I mean, that's clearly a crime immediately. But again, in my specific situation, the law enforcement directly to my face says, we are not going to enforce the law. What do you do? And at that point, I still would not, again, calling out private residences is still not I would still say no. Again, that's on my direct personal level, but then you go to a $238 million penthouse. Do I think that is causing a security concern? No, but I still wouldn't do it. And so calling out a given individual fine, saying where they work, I guess would be completely fine. Again, any sort of, hey, go do this to that person, no, absolutely not. Incitation of violence immediately. Yeah, that's what I got for that. Just, again, none of this stuff is complete. This is just what comes to mind immediately. And so, wealth tax and doxing information, that's what we covered. That's the whole point. We covered Intel's earnings. And then our final talking point is the Department of Justice has now decided to drop the criminal investigation into Jerome Powell. Great, fantastic. I covered that as much as I want to. $2.5 billion when I don't have constitutional rights sounds ridiculous. The motivation from the Trump administration to initiate this seems completely political bullshit. And so, again, I'm in a position where one privileged guy with billions of dollars is bitching about another privileged guy with billions of dollars. Hey, my name is Brad. I'm supposed to be a United States citizen. I cannot buy food properly. I don't even know what world you guys live in. But the thing that caught my ear was Jim Lebenthal. And, do I want to say anything about the Powell investigation? But we have Warsh confirmed talking about this rate cuts. And so that leading into what Jim Lebenthal said, he said something to the effect of shrinking the balance sheet makes sense or makes up for rate cuts, which I'm trying to, why, what is that? Again, balance sheets. I don't even like balance sheets. I don't think you get away from them. I don't think they go away. It's just, again, I've looked at a bunch of balance sheets. I rarely ever pick them up. Market capitalization, price action to sentiment for trading. What something should be valued at is, again, what somebody will pay for it. That's actually true. And so, but this comment of the balance sheet shrinking, well, what part of the balance sheet, Jim? The assets or the liabilities? And so he just makes this blanket statement, shrinking the balance sheet. Is the Federal Reserve, shrinking their assets? That would be a bad thing. Are they shrinking their debt? That would be a good thing. When you just say shrinking the balance sheet, there's positive and negative. There's our fundamental dichotomy, Jim. What are we going to do about that? And so, again, you guys just talk in this way where it's like you say things, and then I'm like, I can follow any logic. You're not saying stuff. And so I don't know how a rate cut, again, every time, what's going to happen when I hear the word rate cut in the Fed. But shrinking the balance sheet makes up for the rate cuts, I guess, in terms of inflation, is like, because the whole conversation about rate cut, not rate cut, is stimulating business for maximum employment or minimum inflation, which, again, we talked about the dual mandate doesn't make any sense to me, specifically to the employment number part of the mandate. But just the string, again, I try to make sense out of, again, there's just so much word salad. There's not enough definition. I don't know what you're talking about, Jim Lebenthal. And so, again, he's the farmer. Is it farmer or pharma? I still don't know. I know I've said it before, but I forgot it again. And then he says something. He says, I see the intellectual basis for that, and I like that. Like, he emphasizes that. And it's, again, in my own personal reflection when I say the word obviously. It's like, hey, something that I just realized like 2 seconds ago, I'm going to say obviously because it was not obvious to me. And then Jim Lebenthal says, I see the intellectual basis, and I like that. But he does not articulate what that intellectual basis is. Again, I'm over here. I sit down here with my little notebook. I write down talking points every day. Balance sheet, I know what that is. Rate cuts, I know what that is. I hate that conversation in relation to the employment number. But again, we're going to stimulate business, and that company that doesn't have real demand can go build another factory for some fucking idiot from high school. Can make, $22 an hour for 16 months before they get cut for something. And so they can show more profitability on their balance sheet. So it's like this job, you can flutter in and out of jobs in hilarious fashion. And so, but the point I'm making is Jim Lebenthal says, I can see the intellectual basis for that, and then doesn't say what it is because he's just, again, saying, like, obviously this was obvious when it wasn't. And so that's what I have for talking points today. And so finishing up around 12:44, that's what it currently is. Anything else I want to say? Again, small position in Joby, small position in Gemmy, not even big enough. The DFTX pretty much sold off all of its spike. Again, I am so bullish on, again, the overall, if science ever kicks in, and at this point I've been at, here is the law of the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, in the Fifth Amendment, specifically the Fifth Amendment. You guys are clearly distributing my property, and I don't care about publication. I want more dollar bills in my fucking bank account. But it's just, I'm Brad Boas. Nobody cares that the law is just violated. It's been, my whole life is like this. My whole life is just, I directly say, here's a crime. And everyone's just like, oh, that's just Brad. Mentally ill. Brad's mental illness. He wants constitutional rights in a family. What a fucking loser. But that's truly what happens. I'm laughing. I'm just not joking. I don't know. That's what I got for today. I think this will be the last clip. If not, you'll know by the time I upload the video. So we will check in later.